You're muted.
Uh, you're right. Okay. good, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Zoom and to this special Shabbat as well, which is Women of Worth Shabbat, and both of them are here. So welcome them and wish them Mazel Tov. That's Francine and Fee. So today's Zoom is going to be as follows, despite the mistake in Machadash. I'm so sorry. We have Morris, who's going to give the Devar Torah first, and then we have Rabbi Shlomo, who's going to lead us in Kabbalat Shabbat. So over to you now, Morris, for your Devar Torah.
Thank you. Lee and I did talk about having a combined rendition this evening where we do alternate words, but didn't work out that way. Anyway, let's start. We see them every week, usually one, sometimes two, and occasionally three. We are, of course, talking about the Sefer Torah. The Sefer Torah is adorned with several ornaments and coverings, collectively known as Kalel Kodesh, sacred vessels. Their purpose is to protect the parchment and honor its sanctity. These decorations often have symbolic significance, and so borrowing a line from Henry Reed's poem, today we have the naming of parts. The Eitz Chaim, the tree of life, are the two wooden shafts around which the parchment is rolled, serving as the Torah handles. The gartel is a long, narrow strip of cloth used to tie the Torah scroll securely so that it remains closed and bound under its covering. The mantle acts as a protective cloak for the scroll. In some Sephardic and Mizrahi communities, the Torah is housed in rigid ornamental wooden or metal cases called a tik. The keter, the crown, that usually rests on the top of the Eitz Chaim, symbolizes the Torah's status as a precious royal possession. The rumanim, the word means pomegranates, decorate the top ends of the Eitz Chaim, and often have bells attached to alert the congregation to the Torah's movements. The bells and pomegranates are representative of the Kohen HaGadol's garments, where bells and pomegranate ornaments were fixed to the hem of his robe to announce his presence. The yad is shaped like a right hand and is typically made of silver with an extended right index finger. It's used by the reader to indicate the text during the public reading. This prevents touching the parchment with bare hands, which could damage the ink and invalidate the sefer. The breastplate is a decorative silver plaque modeled after a high priest's breastplate, which hangs on the mantle. So that's what we have today. But how did we get to this position? From Greek and Latin literature, we know that important scrolls were regularly wrapped in cloth. The earliest known means for storage of the Sefer Torah was by means of a length of cloth known in Hebrew as a mitpacha or mappa, and are mentioned in the Mishnah, the Tosafot, the Jerusalem, and the Babylonian Talmuds. In time, the Jewish communities began to keep their Torah scrolls in special cases. Such cases were common in the classical world, where they are referred to as theka in Greek or capsa in Latin. Such cases eventually became the main permanent receptacle for Torah scrolls. There are three main types of case. The flat-top case, used in Yemen, Cochin, eastern Iran, and Afghanistan. The case with a circular or onion-shaped crown, used in Babylonian communities, Iraq and western Iran. The case with a coronet, used in Libya, Tunisia, and the Greek Romanot communities. The ornaments of these cases differ from one community to another. Cases might be adorned with colourful drawings or covered with leather, fabric, or beaten silver plates. In some communities, such as Yemen, Tunisia, and Libya, the case is usually wrapped in rich fabric. The Torah cases generally have inscriptions around the edges on the front or inside and are typically biblical verses, mainly from the book of Proverbs and Psalms, extolling the Torah and personal information about the donor. Knowledge of Torah cases and the mitpachat in pre-modern times is meager. The evolution of the case from a mere receptacle for carrying the Torah into a sacred artifact can at most be conjectured. It may be assumed that in the first stage, where the case was used only for storage, the scroll was wrapped in a mitpachat, which when placed in the case. However, it was difficult to handle the Torah scroll wrapped in the mitpachat in its case, and most communities therefore removed it from the case. Only the Jews of Yemen continued to wrap the Torah in 2 or 3 mishpachot. There, the mishpachat is used to cover the text adjacent to the text being read, thus preventing its unnecessary exposure. In other communities, the mishpachat is used only to cover the scroll during pauses in the reading, as is currently done today between aliyot. 2 textile objects developed from the mishpachat in Eastern communities. One, found only in Italy and communities in the Sephardi diaspora, is a wrapper, a yeriah, the height equal to that of the parchment, rolled up together with the scroll, a custom that is generally disappearing. The other textile object around the Torah scroll in Ashkenazi communities in Italy and the Sephardi diaspora is the gartel. In Italy and in the Sephardi communities, the gartel is known as a fascia. It is made of costly material or of linen embroidered in silk thread. From the 16th century, it became customary in northern Italy for girls and young women to embroider gartels with symbolic verses or original personal dedicatory inscriptions. In Germany, it became customary in the second half of the 16th century to prepare a gartel for the Torah scroll on the occasion of the birth of a son. This was fashioned from a piece of square linen cloth, which was placed near the infant during the circumcision ceremony. The infant's name, his date of birth, and his father's name were embroidered or written on the cloth, as well as the blessing recited during the ceremony. May he enter into the Torah, the chuppah, and into good deeds. By the 17th century, gartels often had pictures illustrating these elements. The Torah mantle is, as it were, the clothing of the Torah scroll, and its earliest appearance is in the 14th century Sarajevo Haggadah, created in Spain. The mantles, known in the Haggadah, are not embroidered, as it is still common today in Sephardi communities, with the exception of Morocco and Algeria, where Torah mantles have elaborately embroidered patterns and dedicatory inscriptions, as well as motifs such as the Tree of Life in Morocco and a gate in Algeria. The earliest German mantles are depicted in the 15th century manuscripts. The design of these Torah mantles comprise motifs such as a pair of columns, lions, and the Torah crown. The earliest Torah ornaments are the rimanim and the Torah crown, the latter being first mentioned in the 11th century in a responsum from Chai Gaon concerning the use of a crown for a Torah scroll on Sukkot Torah. The use of the Torah crown is linked to this responsum and to the custom of crowning the Katan Torah. About 100 years later, fixed crowns made of silver were used regularly to decorate the Torah scrolls in the synagogue and are mentioned in the document from the Cairo Geniza. Its earliest description are in the 14th century Sarajevo Haggadah. Torah crowns are used in almost all communities, their design being influenced in each locality by local tradition. The onion-shaped or conical crown of the Iraqi Persian Torah case follows the tradition of the crowns of the Sassanid kings, the last Persian dynasty prior to the Muslim conquest. In Cochin, India, and in Aden, a tapering dome-like crown developed. The European crown is shaped like a floral coronet with arms closing over it. In Eastern Europe, a 2- or 3-tiered crown developed. In Italy, on the other hand, the Torah crown was a coronet, known in Hebrew as the atara. The ribanim evolved from knobs from the upper end of the Eshet Chayil. Since the shape of these spherical finial spherical finials were called that of a fruit, it was called a tapurch, an apple, amongst the Jews of Spain and the Sephardi diaspora, and a rimon, a pomegranate, in other communities. The earliest known reference to the Torah Rimonim occurs in a document from 1159 found in the Cairo Geniza, from which we learn that by the 12th century, Rimonim were already being made of silver and had bells. Around the same time, Maimonides mentions Rimonim in the Mishnah Torah. The most significant variation of the Rimonim appeared in the 15th century Spain, Italy, and Germany, where the shape of the Rimonim was influenced by that of various objects of church ritual, whose design often incorporated architectural motifs. The resulting tower-like structure, which seems to have appeared around the same time in different parts of Europe, became the main type of Rimonim in the 18th century and Germany and in Italy, as well as Morocco, brought there by Jews expelled from Spain. The ornamental metal plates hung on the front of the Torah scroll are found in all Ashkenazi communities, as well as in Italy, where the breastplate is shaped like a half coronet and known as the keta, crown, and in Turkey, where it's called a tas and assumes a variety of shapes. The breastplate's function is not merely ornamental, it designates which Torah scroll is to be used for any particular occasion. The pointer by the Torah reader, used by the Torah reader to keep the place, is known in European communities as the yad, the hand, or the ezba, the finger, and in Sephardi and Eastern communities as the mora, pointer, or kalmas, quill, the former because of its function and the latter because of its shape. Halakhic sources also use the terms mora and kalmas. The pointer of the yad is shaped like an index finger and generally has a ring that is not the same as the rest of the pointer. It is not, as some think, to rest the pointer on the parchment whilst reading, but rather it's a symbol of authority. Historically, and even today in certain cases, the monarch would give the ring of office to a trusted counselor who would wear it on his right index finger. Also, under the chuppah, when the bridegroom gives his bride his ring, it initially goes on her index finger as a show of possible authority and sharing. Now we've had the naming of parts and the brief history of their origin, so now we know what it's about. Shabbat Shalom and thank you.
Thank you very much, Maurice. That was interesting. Okay,